March 19th. We're all dealing with the coronavirus, so we're all dialing in from wherever we happen to be tonight. We're going to be seeing a presentation by the school committee. And so, Dr. Oakley, if you'd like to go ahead.
All right, thank you. So we're going to start with our chairperson of the school committee, Mr. Bill Flynn.
Good evening, Chairwoman Anderson and members of the FinCom. We have a short presentation tonight to kind of overview the needs of the school department for fiscal 21. With us tonight is myself, Donna Hume, Susan Sullivan, Molly Smith, Jim Holden, Superintendent Oakley, our principal Mark Bodwell, and our business manager Kathy Grant. So we're going to take a few minutes, outline some really major topics going through with the school system and showing you what our budget's going to look like or what we're looking for the next year. And we're going to start it off actually thanking Mo and Janice for sitting through the actual meeting a couple of weeks ago. So I know they have an idea of what we're going to go through, but we'd like to highlight some other points that we think are very significant going forward. So again, thank you to Mo and Janice for sitting through that last meeting. But we're going to start off with Dr. Oakley, and Dr. Oakley, it's all yours.
Thank you. So, it's been a crazy week, and I'm sure it has for you at your workplace or at home, especially the ones that are stuck at home with their little ones, trying to homeschool them and keep them busy. But we've been doing a lot here, and again, I think I said earlier, this is not how I expect it to go out, but we will get through it, and hopefully things will get better before I have to depart on June 30th. So I want to start by talking a little bit about the Student Opportunity Act, because last year in our presentation, I mentioned the Student Opportunity Act. At that time, it was called the FBRC, wasn't Student Opportunity Act yet, but we had talked about how if we support this, there's a chance that we can get more money for our school system. So I want to talk a little bit about that. If you might be all in different places, or some of you might know about it, but I thought a little overview of what happened since last year would be good. So it did pass by the state legislature in November of 2019. It's supposed to infuse $1.5 billion into school districts over the next 7 years, so it'll be spread out over 7 years. And it was really aimed to close that opportunity gap. And most of the senators and House representatives that really touted it as a giant step towards correcting the inequities between wealthy and lower income communities because the formula hadn't been touched since 1993. So two things that really I want to talk about. Next slide. Pay attention, Don. Two things that I want to talk about. There's really 4 tenets to the SOA Act, but the first one was really to ensure that Chapter 70 funding formula provides adequate and equitable funding to all districts across the state, and I emphasize all because I'll talk about this a little bit later. The second was to provide the additional state funding, such as looking into increasing that circuit breaker reimbursement for special education, increasing it so that instead of just doing tuitions, you could add transportation to that. So those are the types of things that would affect West Bridgewater mostly with the Student Opportunity Act. Next. However, in January, the governor's budget came out, and we found, unfortunately, that 85% of the increased Chapter 70 funding is actually going to about 35% of the districts in the state. And unfortunately, we're not one of them. And I'm not taking away from the districts that are getting this money, because they are a lot of the inner cities. They do have higher numbers of English language learners. They have more poverty. And those are the types of things that the formula looked at in order to give more money. We don't have as high a poverty level as some of these places, and we have, for us, I think, a pretty good percentage of English language learners, but not as high as some of these districts. So, next. And I'll show you what this looks like. In West Bridgewater, in FY20, before they changed the formula, we got a 9.8% increase in Chapter 70 funding over what we were given. We got $362,000 extra last year. With the new formula, we only are getting 3.7% increase, about $148,000.
What?
So we were actually better off with the old formula from 1993 than we are with the new formula, unfortunately. Now, one of the districts that is getting more money, if you look in Brockton, in FY20 got 6.3% increase, and in FY21 with the new formula, 11.3% increase to almost the tune of $21 million. And again, I'm not knocking Brockton. They do have a lot of needs. They have high poverty. They have a really big ELL population. I am a proud Brockton High School graduate. I wouldn't slight them for getting that money. But in my opinion, the Student Opportunity Act did not go far enough to go back to their promise of equitable funding to all districts. And once again, I think they looked at the inner cities. To say that 85% of the money goes to 35 districts just doesn't make sense, that it was such a groundbreaking type of law that changed. And the fact that it hadn't changed for 25 years, no one should get less of an increase than before. And we're not alone, but we are one of those districts that did. In addition to that, and you can go to the next slide, Donna. In addition to that, not only is West Bridgewater getting less of an increase or a lower increase than they got before, the state is actually increasing our minimum contribution to the school budget that the town is required to give us. It's up by 7%, by $533,946. So what they're saying is, we're going to lower what we're giving you from the state, but we expect you to increase what you're giving. And if you take the $533,946 plus the $148 that the state's giving us, what they're saying is they believe the town, with the state money, has the ability to give the school system, at a minimum, another $681,000 towards our FY21 budget. What this all means in a nutshell is Chapter 70 will still only fund our budget approximately 26%. 59% of our budget will still be funded by the town, and 15% is funded by our school choice funds, our grants, and our revolving accounts. Next slide, please. Bottom line is, I think you can tell the Student Opportunity Act was not the panacea that we had hoped for to support our school budget. And we all supported it. And there are a lot of frustrated, shall I say, superintendents across the state that, although we're happy that some people did get funding, we're very frustrated because we're actually getting less. And we still have to have put in the same reports and tell the commissioner by April 1st, unless they put the deadline off, how we're spending all this new money. And my question to the commissioner was, but I'm not getting new money. I'm actually getting less than I got before. And he said, well, you have to come up with something because that's the law. It just makes no sense. So, next slide. So this will not help increase our per pupil expenditure. It's really not going to help us. And unfortunately, it puts a bigger burden on the town that has to give us money. And now Mr. Flynn will show you a few things that are updated for this year.
Thank you, Dr. Oakley. As you can see, obviously this does not going to help us at all, but the latest state figures show our pupil expenditure at $13,239. That's is still 10% lower than some of the districts that are similar to us, and 37th from the lowest in the state. The next couple of slides that we're going to show are slides that you've seen in the past. But the data is just updated. This next slide is based on enrollment in households in a 20-mile radius, and you can see where we are. We're at the bottom of the scale here, with some of the same sized areas, same size population, same size towns that we are. The next slide is that Route 24 corridor, which is kind of what the town likes to refer to when they're, talking about different towns in our area and how we fit into the area that we're in. Last year, we were at the bottom of the scale. We have inched up a little bit to a little over 13,000, and Bridgewater, Raynham, Lakeville have fallen behind. But if you take Lake Avon, they're just under 16,000. That's a town that's similar to us, school district-wise, and so be it. So it is showing that it's not really working for us. The whole expenditure thing really does not help what our needs are for the town, and also the level service budgeting in the schools isn't as cut and dried as the definition may state, due to the changes in the student needs, placements, enrollment fluctuations, in the state mandates. So there's a lot of things that go into this, and then there's a few other things here that are just not helping us, and we need to really focus on a couple of things that really need to take a look at it. And one will be our special education placement and service changes. And then also we're looking at an addition of a mental health professional to add into the school system. And for that, we're going to have Mrs. Hume take us through the next few slides to discuss and explain what we're really looking for in these extra services. Donna.
All right, thank you. So you may recognize some of the things I'm going to talk about from our presentation last year, but since we continued to be impacted by these expenses that are out of our control, I just feel the need to repeat them. So you may know that we're required to provide in the least restricted environment a free and appropriate education for special ed students from the age of 3 to 22. And the student's IEP, or an individualized education plan, dictates the appropriate services and placements for each student, and that placement might not be the local public school. The most unpredicted and unfunded costs for special ed are outside placements for students whose needs cannot be met within the district. We're responsible for both the tuition costs and the transportation costs associated with sending these kids out of district. Some examples of our unpredicted costs that came up last year after we finalized our budget in June: we had a family move to town at the start of the school year. They were here for about a month and then became homeless and was placed in a shelter in Framingham. Because we were the last district that the 4 children in the family attended under the McKinney-Vento law, we have to pay to transport the 4 students to and from Framingham each day and continue to provide special ed services for one of the children who happens to be blind. We also had a 5-year-old move in this year who has multiple disabilities and is placed in a private school in Dartmouth. Because it's a private school, we don't have to pay the associated costs for the student this year, but we will own the cost for fiscal year 21, which, when all is said and done, totals close to $200,000. Currently, 1.5 of our population is placed in an out-of-district placement. However, this represents about $1.9 million, or 12% of our proposed fiscal year 21 budget. Circuit breaker funding is currently available from the state to supplement the local budget tuition costs over $45,000, but over the last several years, it's not been fully funded by the state. So we do get some back, but not all. And currently, transportation is not reimbursable under circuit breaker, and sometimes the transportation costs can be equal, even more than the placement itself costs, depending on if there's need for a monitor or aide on the bus. The Student Opportunity Act that Dr. Oakley mentioned expands circuit breaker funding to include transportation, but the verbiage of pending available funds within the SOA does not leave us very hopeful that we will see any additional funding for transportation. This chart shows the anticipated out-of-district placement costs for fiscal year 21 based on what we have this year. The first column shows the number of students at that placement. We can't list the name of the placement next to the number due to confidentiality, but the list of the schools that students attend are shown at the bottom of the slide. The next column is the annual tuition per pupil, and remember, we have no control over that. And then there's the annual transportation cost in the next column. If it says NA, that's because the transportation isn't needed or it's a residential placement. So for example, we have 4 students at one school. Tuition is $52,620 per student, plus the $60,900 for transportation, and that costs us $271,381 per year. Another example to point out is we have a student with severe disabilities who is in a 365-day per year residential placement with an annual cost of over $352,000. So again, all these anticipated costs for these placements for fiscal year 21 is over $1.9 million. And that's $266,810 more than fiscal year 20 for out-of-district placements. And that's 2% of our increase in our budget. Again, the reasons for these increases include the move-in and the home situation I mentioned earlier. We also have some changes in services and transportations for some of the kids, and each placement increased its tuition between 3 and 5% this year. This graph you might remember from last year. It shows the increase in SPED services overall the past 7 years. The blue shows the number of kids we service here. The red shows the cost for the out-of-district placements, and the orange is transportation. So you can see the increases in the out-of-district and transportation because of the increased needs of the students. We mentioned last year that we're happy to say that our in-services, what's in blue, hasn't gone much over the last few years. And the reason for that is Mr. Michael Asik continues to work hard on building capacity within our district to bring services in-house like OT and behavioral health therapy instead of relying on outside agencies for these services, which is much more expensive. So like last year, it's really the tuition costs and the transportation costs that are hurting us. And again, we have no control over these, no control if tuition goes up or if transportation goes up. If we can't find another district that has a student going to the same place as one of our students, we have to pay for 100% of those transportation costs. We have one student that we pay $299 a day for transportation. It's the only transportation we could find, and by law we have to get the student to his placement, so we have no choice but to pay it. We go out to bid every year for out-of-district sped transportation, and we always go with the one with the lowest cost. Oftentimes we can share transportation with another town, so we do have routes that we share with other districts. And we're also able to cost share through the North River Collaborative, which we've been doing for about 8 years now. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Holden, who's going to highlight another area where we need to increase our budget regarding mental health needs.
Thank you, Donna. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to cover mental health, and with that, here are some very interesting statistics that I feel are important to hear. The adolescent mental health crisis is a national epidemic. Statistics over the last 10 years show 1 in 5 teens suffer from at least one mental disorder. A 17% increase in anxiety disorders, and 80% increase in reporting of major depression episodes. In addition, there are 3,069 suicide attempts made on an average each day by students in grades 9 through 12. And I don't know if you all remember, but we had our own high school student on such a tragedy not too long ago. This is a crisis in our eyes. In West Bridgewater, nurses visit for mental health related issues has increased from 7% to 15% in the past 3 years. Hospitalization for mental health related issues has increased from 2 to 10 per year over the past 5 years. This year alone, West Bridgewater High School has had 6 withdrawals from school due to mental health issues.
Wow.
Research also shows that less than 50% of adolescents with mental health issues receive appropriate treatment for their condition. Early identification and treatment is the key to successfully managing mental illnesses, and school districts need to be the first point of care. I hope you folks understand that this is something that we really need to get involved with and have a person on staff who can help us catch this at an earlier stage. With that, I'm going to move this back to Dr. Oakley, and she's going to give you some more information.
Yeah, so we're looking for professional. You can call it a social worker or an adjustment counselor. The names really don't matter. What matters is that we haven't added any mental health professionals since I've been superintendent to the district, but we are getting a critical mass, and that's why I wanted to show you the national statistics and show you that West Bridgewater's really no different. We're smaller, but we're really no different than what's going on out there in the world with our adolescents. So this mental health professional is above our level service because we're adding a 1.0 person, but really what we're trying to do is to be able to take kids and leave them in our district instead of having them have to get their mental health someplace else. If we can combine our mental health services with our educational services, we believe we keep more kids in district than some of these going out of district, which you know ends up costing a lot of money. If we can get to them early enough, if we can be proactive instead of reactive, and we can identify the risk factors early by having a person building programs for these kids, we believe that will save us in the long run, and it will help our kids get a better education. So this person would develop programming for these at-risk students within our buildings. One of the big things they would do is create and monitor a bridge program. A bridge program is a program to help kids come back when either they're homebound or hospitalized. They have a really hard time. Okay, now I feel better today, so come back and take all your 8 courses and come back in and you can acclimate easily. It doesn't happen that way. We need a program so they slowly can come back in. They need a safe space. They need safe people to talk to. And this person would create that type of a bridge program. This person, unlike our school psychs and our counselors now, it will be licensed to conduct home visits. So we can see what's going on in the home and see if we can bring services to the home to help the student. They'll develop wraparound approach to school-based mental health services and connect parents with the mental health community, which means a lot of times, and you saw the statistic that 50% of the kids actually get service. They don't get help. So this person will have a connection to all of the mental health agencies and services so that they can tell parents, you need to do this, you need to do that. And they can bring people in to help us. So they're really going to monitor the whole program and the whole child and be that liaison to the family because the families need help with this. They'll also, lastly, provide mental health training to our staff. Most of our staff, they go through a traditional education preparation program, and they don't know how to deal with all these changes that happen with kids. They don't know how to deal with it. Just like I'm sure you have family members, nieces, nephews, your own kids that you don't know how to deal with it and try to help them to get through this. They need training. And it's another thing because if we can train the teachers to have a toolbox, then they can help them all day long. And they can identify. And if teachers know how to identify the early signs, we can save a lot more kids and keep them in school. So we understand that the selectmen asked for a level service budget, but we don't think we can wait any longer. The principals did come to me last year and they wanted this mental health professional, and we had to cut our budget. We just couldn't do it, but we just don't think we can wait any longer. So the special education and the mental health professional put us way over level service, but we needed to explain why we were over level service. That's why we wanted to explain that to you. So now Mrs. Sullivan will kind of get more into the nuts and bolts of the numbers of the budget.
Thank you, Dr. Oakley. So as Dr. Oakley had just explained, these are the numbers that are associated with these needs. The special education out-of-district placements is valued at $266,810. These are the increases over the FY20 level service budget. And then the mental health professional, we've estimated at $70,000 that Dr. Oakley just explained in detail, not only the need, but the demand. So we have both pieces for our district. We have the need and we have the demand. It's something that just we're going to need to pay for. Can we go to the next slide? So in summary, the FY21 budget summary for the FY20 town appropriation, and you deduct or you look at the proposed appropriation, we're looking at a 5.5% increase. That translates to $724,944. That's a lot of money, no doubt. We're not taking it lighthearted. We're not presenting it with a light heart either. It's something that it's what our kids need, what they deserve, and what we need to provide for them. The special ed out-of-district placement accounts for 2% of that 5.5% increase. So if we at any time other than, it seems like every time when we come to you for our budget, we're always looking for an increase, and there's always the constant variables of the special education costs, which again are out of our control, and now the needs of the kids are just really, we have to provide these services. Last year at our town meeting, we had to ask for an additional $150,000 to close the FY19 due to unexpected special education costs and long-term illnesses. This year, we asked to put an article on the special town meeting, although it's been canceled because of the coronavirus, so we could reallocate funds from 2 other school articles to cover more unexpected special education costs and homeless transportation in FY20. For years, we were able to cover overages like these through our school choice funds. But as we told you last year, we now use every dime of our school choice money to fund our general budget. We even deficit spend this account from one year to the next to budget the previous year's budget. We cannot continue this dependence on money coming from other towns to balance our school budget. As Dr. Oakley has said year after year, our choice numbers will not stay at this level forever. And with all of the new homes being built in town, the time has come where we are not able to accept as many choice kids as we lose through graduation. For example, this year alone, we're graduating 34 choice students, and we do not have 34 open spaces to make up the difference. What does that mean? That means decreased funds for our budget. With the new Chapter 70 formula, the state is basically saying that our town has the ability. As I said, the state is telling us that our town has the ability to put more into the school budget. But now the question is, do we have the desire to do that? The state says we can. They've told us that through the Chapter 70. Do we have the desire? So with respectfully, we are asking that you appropriately fund the needs of our budget up front so that we don't keep falling short and we can raise our per pupil expenditure to an acceptable level. Any questions?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. That's a lot of information.
Excuse me, I have lots of questions. This is Jerry Screnchy. When
Hi,
do we
Jerry.
get details of the budget numbers? Because so far all I've heard is a sales pitch for $725,000, and we haven't really seen any details. And
Yeah, you have the
we
budget.
deserve those.
You don't have the budget?
We do not have the budget.
Well, we sent the budget over to the town hall, so I don't know why you don't have it.
So Jerry,
Mary, do you have it?
I do. Jerry,
Jerry, everyone should have got the meeting packet email.
you should have received the meeting packet that was emailed to everyone prior to today's meeting. It's in there. I know
All I saw was the budget that was provided. The only budget that I have is the one that we have for all of the other departments.
Yeah, that's the same one I have.
So what
We
happened?
sent over a packet.
There's also this. That's
What
in the
happened to
meeting
the details
packet,
that we
which is a
usually
lot
receive?
of breakdowns.
Oh, I guess there's more information in our meeting packet if you're looking for more of a breakdown, Jerry.
I am.
It should be, yeah.
Yeah, should have been emailed to everybody.
Because I have to be honest with you, Sue.
Yes.
That the town has the ability, do we have the desire? Do you all realize that 50% of the people in this town don't have school-age children, or that 35% of the people in this town are over the age of 60, or who knows at this point how many have been impacted their employment by the coronavirus, and their income is very, very tentative right now, day to day. So I think, well, make a tough choice to just say, sure, $700,000 and $800,000, bring it home, baby, we'll pay it, would be very, very foolhardy on the part of the town.
Ms. Scrunchie, I believe that's very unfair to characterize it that way.
Well, that I wrote down that she said the town has the ability. Do we have the desire?
The
Well,
town
that's what
does-
the state's telling us.
She did say that, but it's very unfair the way you're saying it. This is a presentation. You're to gather the information and go over it, and then ask some questions, and then give us, your questions and whatnot. Not to make a full-hearted, no, we're not going to do it because this, that, or the other.
I haven't decided one way or the other because I really haven't seen the numbers. I just feel like it's
Can I
such a
just,
tough
can I
time right
just
now.
respond? Can I just respond though too? So when I said, I'm not saying that anyone else but the state is telling us, and I'm included with you on this one, Ms. Scrunchie, that we have the ability because of the Chapter 70 formula and the way that everything shook down on this new Student Opportunity Act that Dr. Oakley had explained. The whole coronavirus is affecting each and every one of us. This whole presentation was not prepared with the coronavirus in mind. I mean, this is something that we have to deal with. We have to deal with our budget. These are real numbers on this end. Everyone is suffering. Everyone. I'm not saying that $724,000 is to be looked at very lightly. What I'm saying is that the state has said you guys can afford to supplement your own budget. We're not going to give you the money in the Chapter 70. What I'm saying is, do we have the desire? Clearly, the coronavirus and all of the ramifications of that is going to change the picture for everybody.
Well, I tell you, why don't you go down to the senior center and ask them if they have the desire to pay another $800,000 to the schools? Because while I understand it's where you're coming from and what you're up against, I feel like it's a little bit lighthearted of a statement that doesn't really consider every single taxpayer.
Jerry, can I ask you a question?
I would like to can I
Sure,
say something?
sure.
So I have to, with all due respect, I do want to make a statement, and that statement is that for the past 5 or 6 years, we have come to FinCom and to the selectmen, and we ask for money, and we get told, this is all we have, this is all we have, here you go, we divvy it up and all this stuff. And then I find out that for the past 5 years, July 1st comes, all the receipts close, and this town gets over $1 million in free cash for 5 years in a row, and this year over $2 million in free cash. So don't tell me the town doesn't have the money, because that money is because it's leftover receipts, it's extra money that comes in after once it's closed. So either the town is underestimating their receipts, or maybe overestimating their healthcare, or whatever, but it doesn't. But 5 years in a row, over $1 million in free cash, and this year $2 million in free cash.
That means the town should have $7 million in free cash. That means the town should have about $5 million in free cash at least.
Jerry, can I ask you a specific question? Which part of their presentation do you have a problem with? Is it just the increase? Are there specific items regarding the special education or the mental health professional? Because we're just advisory. We're just reviewing what they're submitting to us.
Thank you, Meredith. I really appreciate that. I haven't detailed the startling, and I think that almost $800,000 is quite a bit for a lot of the taxpayers to swallow, especially people who don't have any children in the schools, whose incomes are a little bit more fixed, because face it, everybody's on a fixed income. You're fixed by your salary. So that fixed income, everybody's on a fixed income. But I feel like I wish I knew more, and I don't, because I'm not really involved. You showed the per pupil expenditure from other towns, and I wonder, how does Abington spend so much more money? How do all these towns spend so much more money? What does their budgets look like that they can spend so much more per pupil? Because there's got to be more inside of that. Either the town doesn't have any other services, they don't have a DPW, they don't have a water department, they don't have an active police and fire department. I mean, they can't fund things all at that level and survive. But Abington, on the other hand, does have a bigger commercial district because it has Route 18 going right through it, and so do some of the other towns. Is their Chapter 70
So what's the
money
question?
different? Do they not have the?
I'm so sorry to interrupt, Jerry. I mean this in the most respectful way. What is your question for the school committee?
I think that Meredith, I had a comment, and I'm allowed to make a comment. So I'm really not appreciating your question of me right now. Okay, I'm allowed to make a comment if
Absolutely.
I would like. Thank you so much for asking me that. I really appreciate it. I think that my comment is that I think that for seniors in this town, $800,000 is a lot to swallow. Everybody wants a good school, but it's a lot. You want a mental health professional, you want to add a 1.0 FTE. Maybe we should try to do that without adding another FTE. Maybe you should find some way in town to eliminate an FTE while you absorb the mental health professional. The comment was made that you had to take money from 2 articles to meet the budget. I'm kind of curious which 2 articles that were approved by the town ended up to be used for budget money, because those were articles that obviously weren't funded the way it was.
They're not.
They weren't.
They're not. Still, we have to go to town meeting if we want to do that. So there aren't 2 articles that are funding things that aren't supposed to. The town would have to vote on that.
Okay.
As I said,
They did want 2 articles that, to meet budget. So maybe I misunderstood. My apologies.
That's okay.
Apologies. But I just feel like you're trying to add in a very, very difficult time, special education prices up, and I think that perhaps you ought to look at absorbing that mental health professional in without adding an FTE. That would be my.
So what would people suggest that we cut? A science teacher? A reading teacher? I mean.
Oh, I haven't.
We have no slot.
Any comments on that right now?
Yeah, but Jerry, it's a new time out there, and I think they demonstrated that there's a need for this particular resource out there. I don't think there were that many suicide attempts back in the early 70s, 80s, or 90s. And if I really look at it, adding that one resource was 2%, the other piece was 3%. I think there could be a very good reason for a need like this. And I know it's tough with the coronavirus, but we're pretty solid right now. So I'm trying to understand where some of the friction is.
I didn't say they didn't need it, did I? I don't recall saying that. I said maybe it should be added without adding an FTE. I think that was my statement.
And
So thank you very much for paraphrasing for me, but if you...
No, I wasn't trying to paraphrase. I was just simply saying I think they need an addition here.
Sorry, Scott, I didn't say that. I
Okay.
didn't say that, but thank you very much for...
I do have a specific question for the school committee, if I may ask that. You had made mention, I know the special town meeting was canceled, but that you had made mention that you were trying to put together an article for the special town meeting. What is it that you're in need of immediately?
Well, we know that we had special ed for 3 different IEPs, especially at the preschool level, that we didn't anticipate. So we had to give them more needs. We had to actually hire 3 instructional assistants one-on-ones for because we take kids through early intervention. We don't know when they're coming. They come at 3 years old, and that happened after the start of the year. The second thing is this homeless family that we're transporting from Framingham to West Bridgewater every day, and there's 4 children, but also one of those children is blind. We don't have the resources for that, so we had to contract out to Reed's Collaborative to get someone in to work with her and to teach the teachers how to do Braille and all that stuff. Those things happen after our budget was approved.
Okay, thank you for answering that. I'm sorry, Jerry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just trying to keep this as amicable as possible. Does anyone else have any other questions for the school committee? Scott, Jan's not on there, Cheryl's not on there. Mo, do you have any questions? Melissa, Scott?
I'm good.
All right, not hearing
I
any
mean, I
other.
have to say, I'm disappointed that already we're probably going to be voted against, and the hostile nature came across with instead of just asking questions. But I'll be honest with you, I've been here for 34 years. I'm leaving this year, and this is your town. This is not my town anymore. This is your town. I'll be leaving, and if this is what you want to do, and you want us to cut, and you want us to decimate the school system, it's up to you guys. You guys make the decisions. Sincerely is what we need to keep our school system up, to keep people's property taxes up, to make it a good school system. And if you don't fund the way that this school should be funded, then in a few years, with all these houses coming in and school choice revenue plummeting, you're going to be in a big time mess. I'm warning you now. I'm telling everyone. I told the selectmen last night, this isn't my town now. I've sold my house. I'm moving. This is your town. You guys can do what you want. But I'm telling you, I still care deeply about this town because I wouldn't have been here for 34 years if I didn't. And it's sad to see if you're going to let this school system just fall apart.
I have a question. If the per pupil expenditure is $13,300 and the school choice money is what, $5,200?
Yeah.
So that's really not a gaining, it's kind of a losing proposition for the town.
No, it is not.
No, it isn't.
No, that's fixed versus
That's what I
variable
don't
costs.
Well, I explained this several times over the past few years, so I'll explain it again. When we take school choice kids, we take them, we already, say you have 20 kids in a class, well, say you have 18 kids in a classroom, okay? And we've already paid for the heat, we've already paid the custodian, we've already paid for the desk, we've already paid for the teacher. So to add 2 or 3 more to that class, that's pure profit because the overhead is already there. So it's extra money that comes in because we're not, I don't do it to overcrowd the school and bring more people in because of school choice.
Oh, I wouldn't think that you would.
Right, that's why it isn't.
But so are the school choice students not included in that 13,300?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, they're included.
Okay. All right.
Are there any other questions for anyone else? All right, thank you guys all for coming on tonight. I know this is a lot.
Can I just make one more statement? I just wanted to, I guess, just on behalf of the school committee, just thank Dr. Oakley. This will be your last finance committee presentation. And honestly, Dr. Oakley, you went out with a bang. Thank you so much for all your years of dedication, for your years and the time you have spent to try to explain the whole process. And it's a picture as a whole. It's not just one group of people. And you have been so kind and informative and compassionate. So I thank you.
Well,
I'm going to miss you and your intelligence. So thank you.
I appreciate that the FinCom didn't disappoint, that my 15th year in front of them, I still got nights shoved in my back. So thank you very much and good night.
Thank you.
Very sorry. Thank you, Dr. Oakley.
Good luck, Tito.
Meredith,
Yes,
can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Mo.
Are we still going to continue to use this
Yes,
format for tonight?
yes.
Okay, good.
All right.
I had trouble getting on,
Can I call a
dropped it.
recess? Should I call a recess to get everybody all situated
I'd
again?
like to, sure.
All right, I'd like to call a recess so that we can take a moment and get everybody back online.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Meeting back into session. Is everybody online
Can
there?
I just talk for a second, Meredith?
Is it about what's on the agenda?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
So I don't have the details on the school committee budget, and at some point I will receive them.
okay.
But I did want to point out that in past budgets, what we have experienced is that the school committee comes in and says they can't possibly cut not another penny from any line in the budget because they have cut it to the bone. But yet the superintendent's salary will show up at, let's say, $150,000. And then when we go to the following year, she actually got $175,000. And the same happens for the principals. So what they do is they take money from other lines to fund the bonuses. So obviously those other lines were overfunded at the time they put the budget in. So when they come in and they say we can't possibly afford another penny to take out of this budget, I know that that's probably not accurate because they're hiding money to fund bonuses.
I have to remind,
That's a problem that I have with the way they present their budget. And it's $800,000 is a lot to swallow, especially when they're going to come back next year and 3 or 4 lines are going to have more spent than they had asked for when they said they couldn't possibly afford another penny. So why can't they share with the town before they do the budget that this could be the impact of bonuses, so we have an idea?
Jerry, I just want to remind you that it's a bottom line budget, and we could make the same claim about every other department.
Well, we look at every other department's lines. We sit with the water department, and we sit with the assessors, and we sit with the DPW, and we look at every single line in the past.
Would you rather we had handled their budget that way? Because I did ask the question if there were any.
When we look at everybody else's lines and we don't look at theirs. I mean, I'm a little bit confused. No, I don't think we should evaluate every line, but why are we evaluating the lines on every other budget?
I'm sorry, so this is Molly Smith from the school committee, so I'm actually on, if you wanted to ask that question. So we do have a line in our budget that's contractual benefits, and a lot of times before this meeting that we have with you is before negotiations. So we don't have next year's raises in all of those lines. And that is something that we talk about each year. So it's in the budget, it moves from one line to the other line.
I want to go back to the budget, Jerry.
Placeholder thing, so we kind of have an idea. But I'm saying as an overview that this has happened every year that I've seen a school department budget, and it always makes me scratch my head the following year. So this is, and then now, so it makes it a little harder. Period. Okay?
Okay, were there any specific line items on their budget that you had questions about since
I
they're?
have not looked at the budget because all I see is the gross budget in the budget book, which we have never looked at. We always looked at the detailed budget.
To her FinCom.
So, I mean, we are in
email. I sent the meeting
situation
packet.
this year, obviously,
The
we all
breakdown
know
of
that
the
we're
school
not there
budget
together,
starts on
we can't
page
hand you
41 of that
what
meeting
we're
packet.
looking at.
If she
So
wants me to
we're
send it
sent to you
again
ahead
or
of
send
time.
it to a
I'm
different
sorry
email.
that you don't
I don't
have that, didn't have it before.
I've checked everything. I don't appear to have received it. I'm very sorry.
Okay, I will send it again right now.
She's going to send it to your personal email address to make sure you get it.
What number is at the end of her FinCon email?
If there's questions later, since we've already had our meeting, I mean, we're always more than welcome to answer those questions if it's line by line or anything that comes up between now and when you have a chance to review it. But this is half of the town's budget. So to have large increases in salary is something that happens. And we can't put that in the budget, even if it's anticipated. That would not work well for our negotiations. If this is public information. If we put in there, this is what we're thinking about giving somebody as a raise, that would not work very well.
Hey Molly, this is Scott Weatherby. How are you?
Hi Scott, good, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Just curious, $800,000 out of this budget that we're looking at, I don't have the number right in front of me. What's the percentage?
5.5%.
5.5%.
Right.
And that's with your FTE, which is 2% of that.
No, the FTE actually isn't 2%. The FTE represents, and I apologize, I don't have the exact number, and I wish I had the rest of my team on here, they would tell you, but 2% of it alone is the increase just from the special education.
Okay, that was
So
it. Okay.
if you
My
pulled
mistake.
the 2% per increase out, let's say, and this isn't a world that we live in, but let's say special education didn't exist and that we weren't mandated by the state to educate every single child, which we are, thank goodness, right?
Yep.
If that was the case, our budget
we
increase
lose
would
the
be
FinCom?
3.5% is what we would be looking
Is
for.
FinCom still on?
So that's where the,
That's my confusion. It was 70,000 for an FTE and it was
Oh, wow.
2% for the.
yeah, the 2% is for the, so Donna's
Okay,
back on,
Donna
so
came
she's
back.
got the up for me. So the 2% for,
Facilitated it, they can join in and out, just like we do.
And I'm sorry to drag this out, and I'll stop it. I just wanted to make
no,
sure.
no, that's
my
okay.
numbers were right.
So the $70,000 actually represents, I haven't done the math, but one day we did do the math. It's like a 0.2% of the budget or something, or not even, what's 13 million? I'm not good at math. 13 million, $70,000 is, it might not even get a point something in there. It might be like a 0.01%.
Sorry. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So to put it in a different perspective, every year there's the tax add-on because of the school project, and that was very controversial. Did they want it? Did they not want it? And people voted for it because they wanted it. But it's a big pill to swallow. It was almost $600 a household, roughly, understanding that everybody's assessed differently. It was roughly $600 a household, and with the stabilization fund, we got it down to about $300.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something that our town needed.
The budget
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt. We have to stay with the topics on the agenda, and we also have,
Just one sentence, Meredith, thanks.
I'm sorry?
Budget increase, I said, I'm just going to finish this one sentence, thank you. With the budget increase from the schools, if you don't even add, with the special ed, it's about $300 a household. Without the special ed, it's about $200 a household. So I think that taxpayers will have questions, and I don't think it's unreasonable to have a question and a concern. And that's my statement. Thank you very much.
No, I agree with you. Let's just make sure we focus on what the questions are. We do still have a timetable we're trying to adhere to on our agenda. Does anyone have a specific question for the school committee so we can let them go?
I can let them go.
Okay, I appreciate your time and you guys looking at this. I know the school, it costs a lot of money to run. This is what we need to run the school as we have been running it. We have been doing level service budgets for as long as I can remember being here, which needs have changed. And so that's, sometimes the level service isn't what we need anymore. And year after year, we've been doing what we can with what we have. And at a certain point, we need to go up. But taxes, I don't want to see my taxes increase, but I also want to see the money that I do spend in my taxes being spent well. And we need to continue to offer great opportunities for our students and for everyone in our community. So you guys have a tough job. We don't have a lot of money in the town, I understand that, but we have a lot of services and we have great services and we want to keep those.
Well, great. Thank you very much. And any other questions for the school committee? All right, hearing none, I'm going to say thank you. We're going to move on with the agenda. I understand Chris Inatelli is on hold. He's coming online to speak to us about the DPW, but seeing that that directly affects my family, Jerry, I'm going to hand it over to you.
You can't because I'm barely looking at this. I don't know which budget it is, so why don't you have somebody else do it for me? Okay, because I think with the community, well, we're all, yeah, just have somebody else do it tonight, Meredith.
Okay, is there anyone else who would like to chair the meeting while I abstain? All right, Scott, I vote on you. Scott, if you would please take over the presentation for the DPW. We're going to bring in Chris Inatelli.
Sure, bring them on.
All right, Chris, are you with us? All right, let me bring you up, sorry.
Can everyone hear him?
I think so. Yep, I hear
All
him.
right, I think you're good to go, Chris.
Hey, Chris, sorry.
So we're gonna go over a few little budgets here. The first one being Public Works, 4250.
I cannot hear him very well. There was the air misser.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, could you hold on 1 second? We can't hear you very well. Let's try this again. So you're doing the Public Works 4215 budget?
Let me turn my speaker on.
All right, let's try this again.
All right, try again, Chris.
All right, so we'll start with 4215, which is Public Works budget. Is there any questions?
Oh,
Well, I guess we're not asking questions about the lines because we don't ask questions about the lines in the schools.
Is there a way to present the lines? Meredith, is there any chance that we can, is there any chance we can put the lines on the
screen?
on the Google Meeting?
Yes, I can try to do that.
I can
Maybe
switch
that
it
might help all of
to,
us.
I can switch to my screen. I can switch to,
I just think that might help all of us, so there's, because, yeah, I'm looking at the, our memo, but I don't have the lines in front of me without toggling.
all right. Can you guys all see my screen?
Nope, we can see you, though.
Oh, isn't that great? I thought you could see my screen.
No, we can see
Share.
you on there.
Share. How do I?
Yeah, probably share.
It's not allowing me to share.
So if you click down below your face, where you turn off the speaker and you turn off the video.
Right, where it says present now,
Yeah.
it's not letting me.
It's not working okay. So let's see if I can try.
All right, how about this then? Okay, if we can't look at it, Chris, could you tell us what the budget
Figured it
level
out.
is for the 4215? Is it a 1% increase? Is it a, oh, wait a minute, whoa, I'm seeing something now. Okay.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Perfect. We can see my
Getting there.
Let me just get to the right page. Any idea the page number? It's gonna be past 41.
It's a different
Yes,
page.
past 41. No, I don't have page numbers.
Go back to home.
It's,
I don't understand. I can see this budget. Why can't you guys see it?
Where are you seeing it, Jerry?
On the Google Docs.
oh, what number is that? Oops, I went too far.
It's on a different page. I mean, you have to open up a different tab.
Okay, can I rotate this?
So,
What's the Public
Mary,
Works,
would it be easier for you to go
4250.
to,
4215?
Enter your PIN followed by the pound or hash.
Yeah, all right.
If you
So
do not
I
know
have
your PIN, please enter pound or hash. Thank you.
so you know how you regularly open your budget in your Google Docs?
Mhm.
That might be the best way to look at it.
That's what I'm looking for right now.
It should be all turned the right way, and you could just type in the number.
I'm not seeing it.
If you go to your FinCom email,
Yep, meeting packet. I clicked to download it
yep, so go back,
to Google Docs.
nope, to your, in your FinCom email,
Mhm.
in the left-hand corner near the PDF number, you just click that. Does that make sense? Exactly.
Click that.
Yep, go
That's-
back.
That's gonna close it.
Okay, and then go to all mail.
Go back.
Sorry, Chris, we're right with you. Going through some growing pains.
That's the packet. That's what I had open.
Right, but I think it would be easier for you to view,
It- with it in
this
Docs.
budget email from Linda. It's about like the fifth or sixth one down, FY21 budget.
Oh, the Sheets one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. And what is it? 4215?
4215. Public Works.
and then you can just review if you like.
Come on. Can you guys see my screen? It's still loading.
Yes, we can still see your screen, Meredith.
Sorry, it says still loading.
turned it down to 50%.
As soon as it lets me. Okay, and we want 42. Come on. Today. There we go.
There we go. There we go. Now we're in business. Thank you, Meredith.
You're welcome.
Great.
All right. Okay, Chris. Still with us?
Okay.
I think we're better now. Yes.
All right. So, on the public works budget, other than contractual rate, every line is the same, so we didn't go up in any. And we actually were able to take off the last line item, the dam inspection, which we only do every 10 years for $4,500. So that brought it down 45 in the regular budget. And that's why the budget looks pretty close from last year.
Okay. So,
Okay? Any questions on any of the lines?
anyone on the phone have questions?
This is low, I don't have any.
No, not for me.
So that's 0.01%. It's kind of nice, Chris. Okay, so we want to step to the next one, 4230, Public Works snow removal.
Snow removal, of course, that starts out at 91,000, and
It's wrong way.
even though it has gone over that budget already this year, it is going to be, unless we get something in the next couple of weeks, much lower than it has been because we lucked out this winter with very minimal storms and very minimal sand events. So I think we're in pretty good shape with that, and that's good news for the town.
If I'm not mistaken, a lot of times we do the budget and then we have to go to town for any overages, so we may not have to do that this year. Bless you.
Coronavirus.
I know.
Sorry.
Run, Meredith, run.
Seriously.
Okay, do I?
Well, what will we expect the, snow removal to be? Half of that?
I do not have that figure.
I do.
Okay.
It's
But it's, you're budgeting 91,000 and it's hard to say, I know.
right, so,
I think that's what we stop at usually.
Yeah.
We,
All right.
we know we have gone, well, we pretty much have gone over that already, but it is going very well considering.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions on this budget? All right, hearing none, can we move on to 4240, the Public Works street light?
Now, street lighting is pretty well set, and Secretary Sue worked on that and tried to advise us if she thinks it's going to go any higher than what we budgeted. And as of right now, we feel that that's pretty close.
Okay. Okay, great.
Although we are hoping, if we do convert to LED this year on some streetlights, it may show a savings.
Would it cost us money to do the LED lighting first? Like, I'm assuming you'd have to have the be done?
We're not at that point yet where we can say that, but the plan is that, like any of these energy saving programs, there is a cost, but you get it back within a few years.
Okay, good. Okay. Anything else for 4240?
Nothing from me.
No.
No, good. Okay, moving on, 4330, waste disposal.
Waste disposal usually shows a small surplus at the end of the year that's budgeted in to protect us in case we have overruns. This year, it's going to be a lot tighter. We definitely have had rate increases from dumping and disposal companies. because of that, we are not going to show any excess at the end of this year. We're going to be very tight. So we need to kind of look at that in the future and think about other ways to raise revenue for that particular budget.
Meredith, could you scroll down a little bit more on that budget if you wouldn't mind to the bottom to see what the percentage? Okay, so all right. So you're at 0.33, but we're going to keep an eye on it. When would you know, do we swing left or do we swing right?
Well, we know already that they've gone up this last 2 or 3 months quite a bit. And we just don't know. I mean, everything is so volatile right now with waste management and recycling that it's a very, very tough thing to tell.
Anything from anyone else on the waste disposal?
No, I guess it is what it is for now, right?
Yeah, it almost looks a little too easy, but we'll see what happens. Okay, moving on to 4940 tree wood.
Now that's pretty easy.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Yeah, it's hard to yell about that. So any questions and concerns from the committee?
Nope.
Chris, I think this was one of the easiest ones I've been through, so thank you very much.
Good. You're quite welcome.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. You're welcome.
All right, have a great night. Thank you.
Yes, you too. Good night.
Don't
All right.
switch my sound.
Meredith, I'll turn this back to you.
Thank you. Can you?
No
Oh, it
problem.
is working. Okay, we have Community Preservation Committee.
I just texted Cheryl, so she should be calling in any minute.
Oh, great. Do you know which budget number?
It's not
There's not a budget number
Okay.
associated with it.
yeah, it's not an actual budget, so it's,
Okay.
So it won't have a sheet. It was included in the meeting packet. If you want me to.
Can you guys see me again?
Yep, see you. Yep.
Oh, just, isn't that great?
Well, that's why I put mine on. You can mute yourself. You don't have to see the video.
Well, it,
No one wants to see me close up.
I don't know, that F that keeps flashing when you talk, it's pretty amazing.
Have you not left the house for days too?
No, I have not. I've been mine since Tuesday of last week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my work, I work for Mass Mutual Insurance, and they take it so seriously. We literally started letting people work from home last week.
Yeah, all of my friends, it's been the exact same thing.
Oh, right. So can you see that?
Mhm.
Okay.
so we're just waiting for Cheryl.
Yes. Cheryl, are you there? Is anyone in the conference?
Do you mean like us? Or?
Like us?
Oh,
Is Cheryl on?
not yet.
Not yet.
While we wait for her,
Hi, Cheryl.
Good. I'm gonna mute mine so there's no echo. There we go. Oh, then I can't ask questions. All right, I guess I have this. Oh, you must hear me through Lorna's. All right, well, hi, Cheryl. Nice to see you. Can you mute yours then?
Let's see.
Oh, but you have to pick up Cheryl.
Yeah, let's see if that affects that.
Just turn the speaker on silent. Just mute it.
We're still hearing you. I think you're picking up through your computer.
Okay. I'm getting a lot of different things popping up. So,
Oh, yeah, you are. I can see it.
Okay.
How's that? Much better.
Okay.
Okay, so now the echo's gone. Can you guys hear me okay? Anybody there?
Yes, much better.
Oh,
Yeah, I can hear you. And now I'm in.
All right.
so put your speakers on mute, and then it'll get rid of that feedback sound. That sounds a little better. Are you still there, Cheryl?
I'm still here.
All right. Why don't you take us through what's going on with your budget?
Okay, there is a lot of, background noise, so, I'll just do the best I can here. So the CPC has 3 projects that we'll be looking at next week. 2 are for records preservation, which I know you guys are probably familiar with. One is from the town clerk for 10,000. The other is for, the assessor for 10,000. And the third project we have this year is from the Conservation Commission, and it is to prepare the paperwork to put Skin Mill Bridge on the National Register of Historic Places, as well as to do some engineering planning to see what would be needed to preserve the bridge. That application is $17,500. So currently we have around $175,000 in the unreserved balance. We're expecting, or we have projected revenues of about $185,000 for this year, with a projected match of somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000. So we don't have too many. I know last year I had a lot of projects that came to see, but this year we have 3. So it's a little brief. But does anybody have any questions?
Not at the moment. Anybody else on the committee have questions?
Not at this time.
On the Skim Mill Bridge, Mo, are we working on a grant for that too?
I'm sorry. Were you asking if there was a grant also being worked on?
Yes.
Not that I know of. I know there might be some available money that could go towards these preservation projects in the future, but I don't know if anybody from the Conservation Commission has pursued that.
Okay, that sounds good. Anyone else have questions for Cheryl? All right, not hearing any. I think you're off the hot seat, Cheryl. Thank you so much for connecting with us tonight.
Great. All right. If anybody thinks of anything, they give me a buzz.
Well, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, now we're going to switch over to David. He's going to present the remaining budgets.
So, can everybody hear me on the computer?
Yep.
Okay, good. So if it's okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to batch them. I'm going to give you all the numbers, and then, because half of these are small little committees, 2 of them are large budgets we just don't have control over. So I'm going to give you it like as an aggregate, and then if you guys have questions, let me know. The moderator budget is $588. That's level funded. The insurances budget is up 5%, about $13,000. We went out to bid last year. We actually saved some money, and so we continue to shop around. But again, in today's environment, with the assessed values going up, and again, when we add the $63 million school, we had a larger, more expensive building. I think 5% is pretty reasonable. Sealer of weights and measures, it's a very small budget, $6,200 or $6,100. It's up 1.84%. The Historical Commission is $1,750 as a budget. That's level funded year over year. I'll skip state, county, and assessments for 1 second. The benefits budget is the second largest budget in the town after the school. That's up 6.7%. As I tell everybody every single year, this is mainly driven by 2 factors. One is health insurance, which we're budgeting 5%, which again is not an unreasonable number for health insurance. It's just that it's $6 million line. And then our Plymouth County retirement, which is mandated by the state, that goes up about 8% every single year. And the hope is that if the actuarial tables are correct, is that by year 2033, it's self-funded. So in theory, in 2033, this should drastically be reduced. Unfortunately, it's going to be an 8% increase year after year after year, assuming the actuarial tables are accurate. And then the state county assessments and charges, that's really not a budget. What that is that that's the amount of money that comes in from the state. So the assessments is what they give us for receipts, which is about $6.6 million. And the charges is about $862,000. The net difference is that after you total everything up, is the town will receive $170,000 to the positive this year in reference to state receipts. That's down year over year.
It doesn't seem fair that you didn't have to sit in front of a camera up your nose,
Ah.
do that presentation. Does anyone have any questions for David on any of those budgets? Is everybody still there? Okay, good.
Yep, everyone's here.
Oh, good.
No questions, Scott.
Okay, was there one, do we have to go through capital?
There is the
Yeah, with the capital budget report.
So there's a capital budget report there,
Yeah, can I stick this up your nose so everyone can
Oh.
see you? Just seems fair.
but then they're not going to see you.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Just mute.
All right. So, hello.
Hello, David.
Yes.
There
you
are-
can call me in next time.
You know, I hope I don't offend anyone, but there's some very attractive noses out there. All right, so capital budget, as you can see, we had a handful of requests. 3 of the finance committee members sit on it, so they could certainly speak to it just as I can, which is Meredith, Mo, and I think it was Jan this year.
It was.
Okay, good. So in the end, you could see what we funded. Basically, $330,000 or so will come from free cash on the town side, and the difference of about $41,000 will come from the water side. The DPW department had 3 requests: a generator, a tractor, and mobile lifts. I could speak to those if you need me to. The building is basically, that's really one upgrade, which is the HVAC. Quite frankly, we did in a couple of offices last year, we did some ACs. Most of the ACs in the town now either do not work or they're too loud to actually be utilized because they're old. And so we had last summer, a lot of the people just had to run fans and it wasn't fair. What we've done is we've switched over to mini splits, which is what we did in the selectmen's meeting room. And when you do that, you have to take the wall AC unit out of the wall. That was never meant to be an exterior wall AC unit. We used those to save money years ago. And then you have to patch up all the siding in the sheet in the plywood. So basically, it's the same project. It's just that we broke it down between all the HVAC upgrades and the carpentry work that has to be done. The fire is a replacement vehicle. The water department is 2. What is it? It's a vehicle that was totaled. We received some money back from the insurance. It was not their fault. Somebody hit us. The other item there is in reference to a pump, a starter that is inside a well that failed and has to be replaced. And then the school department is looking to replace their truck as well. Their truck's pretty old. It's a 2007. It's got a lot of rust on it. And then the last one is the Board of Selectmen. I put this in and have spoken about this for a couple of years. If you go down the front stairway where the building inspector is, and it goes downstairs into where the town clerk's office comes out, that goes around a pretty winding area where the stairs disappear in the corners. And it's a real safety issue at this point. So we have to re-engineer all of that. And while we're there, there is a historical office with another, basically a hideaway staircase on the left that is extremely unsafe. If you ever want to experience it, you probably should. And
Yes.
and it's pretty poorly lit all the way around. So we want to reconfigure all that area so that way nobody gets hurt. And so we have to do some engineering work because it's going to require some structural changes. So all told, that came out to about $347,000, which would come from free cash, which we have. So it wouldn't be debt. We wouldn't incur any additional interest expenses. And then water would I'm not sure how water's gonna pay theirs yet. We have not received the information. I assume some of it is water surplus and some of it would be through their budget, but I don't have that answer. They don't have that answer to give us yet.
And is this all of it, David?
That's it. That's all of it.
I thought I was kind of expecting that maybe that land might have been.
Oh, nope. The land is not part of the capital budget. We approved that as part of the special town meeting.
Okay.
And that was going to come out of free cash, but in case you don't know, I think you may, but if you don't, the special town meeting has been canceled at this point. Obviously, we can't have any meetings over 25 at this point.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
So, David, is this money coming out of these $5 million in free cash that the town has?
So
That's a joke.
Okay. Okay. It is coming out of free cash.
Okay.
All except for the water.
David,
Yes.
with regard to that special town meeting and that whole proposal for that land,
Yes.
is it postponed or are we we don't know?
So the answer in the short term is it's canceled, and the expectation is that when we hold our annual town meeting, is that we will then take those warrant articles, it was basically the land and the engineering, and we would put that into the annual town meeting warrant at that point. The only reason I'm hesitating is because I'm not so sure that we're gonna have an annual town meeting in May. That's what it's scheduled for right now. But depending how the next 4 to 6 weeks go, I wouldn't be surprised to see that get canceled as well.
Yeah. Is the landowner understandable?
He was understandable but not happy, but he also knows it's not our fault.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
All right, anybody else have other questions on the capital budget? I noticed we also have cherry sheet information.
Yep, that is the state, that's the assessment information. So, excuse me, I'm gonna come over one quick sec.
Sure.
So that is the receipts of the 6.6 million that I spoke of.
Okay.
And that is the charges.
Okay.
And if you total those all up, you'll see the net positive to the town is $170,000
Oh, okay.
year over year.
Gotcha. Okay, I missed that piece. All right, we still have the minutes to approve. I believe we have that on the agenda. Oops, somewhere. The meeting minutes of February 20th. Those are to be approved. Has anyone had a chance to read them, and would anyone like to make a motion on them?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Do we have to do a roll call because of it being a?
Yes, you do. That's a
Okay.
very good point. You do have to
Okay.
do roll call.
All right.
Nice call.
Mary Anderson, aye. Scott?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Mo?
Aye.
Jerry? Are you still on there?
I think she dropped.
Okay, so is it just the four of us? I guess it is. All right, hearing none opposed, that's so moved. How about the meeting minutes for March 5th for review? Doesn't matter that we don't have a quorum? All right, anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept for review.
The March 5th meeting minutes?
Yes.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to do a roll call vote. Mary Anderson, aye. Scott?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Mo?
Aye.
Jerry, you're still not there, right? Probably. Don't want to miss anybody. All right. Sounds like that passed. I believe the last item on the agenda is to adjourn, unless anyone else has any further discussion for tonight.
Do we have a date for the next one? I don't have it right in front of me.
At the moment, we do not.
Well,
well-
your next meeting is scheduled for April 2nd.
Our next meeting is scheduled for April 2nd.
And that is supposed to be when you start voting on your budgets.
But what's the likelihood that we're gonna have the meeting?
Right now, I'd say not very good.
Yeah, I wasn't too crazy about having this one tonight. So it's not very likely that we'll have the April 2nd, but of course, as things happen, I'll communicate with everybody. Thank you guys for paying attention on the open meeting law and not replying all to the emails. Everyone's done fantastic with that, so that's been a huge help.
Could we theoretically do it the way we're doing it now if we had to?
We could. I'm not sure I'm thoroughly enjoyed this format.
I don't know, I don't think I can say that because I dropped off about 10 times.
Okay.
Check and adjust. We'll see what happens in a second.
That's
There
it.
you
We'll just
go.
do what we can do. But everybody
Thank you guys
stay
for
healthy.
Doing everything that you do.
Oh, hey Molly, I didn't know you were still there.
Yeah, the
Thank you.
audio on this is much better than on the TV.
Well, thank you
Yeah,
guys
have
for
a lot.
coming together tonight. I know this was, it's been a crazy week, so stay healthy, stay safe. And if anyone would like to make a motion, we can adjourn this meeting.
I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right, is there a second?
I'll make a second.
All right, all those in favor is going to be a roll call vote. Mary Anderson, aye. Scott?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Mo?
Aye.
And still no Jerry. Okay. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys so much.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank
You too. Thanks.
Bye.